In a dim brick corridor, narration recalls Victor Hugo speaking of retribution and women as perfect evil, while a lone figure descends wooden steps into darkness. A silver-haired woman in a tight skirt leans forward, as the narration admits the power of evil was used to control women. Outside a school building, two students are seen through a high window entangled in an intimate moment beside the looming campus facade. On a dreamy background, a flushed woman gasps softly that her partner is still as sensitive as ever while the grinning man calls out to her. In a quiet hallway, a boy in glasses squats in distress, hearing muffled cries of pleasure from the nearby room and begging for it to end. Clutching his head, he thinks he has obeyed them all through school life, cursing his weakness and noting the Mizuno gang has always exploited it. Still outside the door, he laments that even now he must stay on lookout, then hears someone call his name in surprise. A large, stern teacher in a tracksuit looms over him, frowning and demanding to know what he is doing there. Startled, the boy stammers that nothing is happening while someone inside hurries and curses, prompting the teacher's suspicious question and the boy's panicked cry. At the open windows of the cluttered room, the teacher peers around, saying he thought someone was smoking but smells nothing, while the boy waits nervously behind him. The teacher orders Sakuraba to report to the student guidance room and confess everything. The boy hesitates with a weak protest as the cold exterior of the school is shown. Tokushige Mitsuru and Kanyaka Takuma are introduced in profile as serious faculty members watching with tight expressions. Another staff member, Yuuki Masakata, is introduced with a calm, unreadable face and a floating name card. Masked, droopy-eyed Sakido Chiaki adjusts her hair as her nameplate marks her as part of this intimidating group. Smiling gently with a phone in hand, Mizuno Hina is introduced, her pleasant expression hiding her role. Akishimiya Mizuho's name appears as she angrily points and accuses that someone informed the teacher of their hiding place. Sakuraba sits hunched and guilty, weakly insisting he did nothing while thinking he kept silent to the end. Out in the corridor, one delinquent grabs another by the lapels and yells they were nearly caught, only to be harshly told to shut up. Inside, Mizuno laughs that it turned out fine, saying they fooled the teacher into thinking someone escaped through the windows, while another girl adds he was actually safe. Akishimiya winks playfully and says they hid in the supply closet, praising Takuma as clever while the teacher walks away unaware. Later, Mizuno faces Sakuraba with a businesslike smile, calling the incident his failure and asking how he will deal with it. Trembling and tearful, Sakuraba protests that he tried to stop them, but outside the others shout that it does not matter and call him an idiot as they leave. Surrounded and crouching, he hears them say if he does not change, his excuses will only make him a pathetic adult always justifying himself. Mizuno, smiling sweetly with her phone, tells him he cannot become a proper useful man for society like this. Another teacher cackles that he should just quit school, adding that if they post the incriminating image he will probably be expelled. Grinning with a peace sign, Mizuho mocks him to do his best finding work after expulsion, treating his future as a joke. As Mizuno holds her phone, Sakuraba reaches out in panic and begs her to stop, but she refuses and stays composed. Outside, the delinquents encircle Sakuraba and one strikes his face, sending him reeling as the others watch. In a brutal sequence, Sakuraba is kicked and attacked, screaming as another boy smashes a fist toward his head in cold fury. Standing before Mizuno, a confident blonde boy points at Sakuraba, asks what he is doing to Hina, and declares he can end him right now as she gasps behind him. Pinned and panting, Sakuraba grimaces while a girl clings from behind, his glasses askew as the assault continues. Outside the door, a girl squats and wonders if Sakuraba's defiance means they have not punished him enough, blaming themselves for his resistance. She steps closer with blazing eyes, warning he cannot escape them just by dropping out, saying their control extends beyond school. Mizuno, leaning on the railing with a sly smile, suggests they completely destroy his reputation so he becomes utterly obedient. The blonde boy seizes Sakuraba's hair and lifts his head. Sakuraba groans in pain while the bully glares coolly. Mizuno steps forward holding a leash, saying she prepared it for him and promising to film a video that will make him want to disappear when leaked, as he reacts in horror. Flicking the leash with delight, Mizuno listens as a thug laughs he will break Sakuraba's ribs if he resists, while Chiaki notes Hina does not even hide her sadism. Forced to the floor, Sakuraba is shoved down by a hand on his head, while someone above roars with laughter at the scene. Mizuno raises her phone, preparing to film, and tells him to walk for the video and crawl on all fours like an animal. With a thug gripping his hair, Sakuraba pleads for them to stop, but is ordered to move or be kicked as he is dragged on hands and knees. From a distance, the group stands around him in the alley. One boy rests a foot on his back while the others watch like casual spectators. Laughter erupts as a delinquent says he cannot stop laughing at this special walking lesson for the masochist, while Mizuno focuses on recording. In the open space, Mizuno muses he has stopped being human, another girl hums, and someone shouts that Sakuraba is pitiful while music blares. Mizuno crouches and reminds Sakuraba that Hayami is in the class next to his, asking if that girl is not his childhood friend, as his eye widens in terror. Sakuraba suddenly shouts that they must not involve Azusa, his voice cracking with desperate fear for her. A girl smirks at how worried he looks and teasingly asks if he and Azusa are now dating. Mizuno calls it interesting and wonders if Azusa is more than a friend but less than a lover, while Sakuraba stammers they are not like that. Looking down on him, the gang decides there is no problem calling Azusa, promising to make her obey and saying they will let Sakuraba have her at the end, while another boy claims he wants her first. Mizuno steps beside the crushed Sakuraba with a mocking smile, casually mentioning that Azusa is still inexperienced as the others smirk. Overwhelmed, Sakuraba finally screams that they must not do such a thing, his face twisted with rage and grief. The blonde ringleader yanks his leash, offended, and demands how he dares use that tone with them. Half-choked on the leash, Sakuraba begs them to spare Azusa because she is uninvolved, while Mizuno coldly asks if he has forgotten his position or is just stupid. Another thug pulls the leash taut and declares Sakuraba has no right to make any requests, crushing his remaining dignity. A heavy sound effect flashes as a shoe slams down, signaling another vicious blow. Sakuraba lies sprawled on the ground, eyes wide and unfocused, as if his spirit has been beaten out of him. Later, kneeling alone in the alley, he picks up his fallen phone, thinking it dropped when he was struck and feeling relieved it still works. Walking behind the school beside high fences, he broods that returning to class with a bruised face will cause trouble and only more beatings. Elsewhere, Mizuno slides open a door to leave and casually says it is time to go home, as if nothing happened. Outside at dusk, Azusa walks when a classmate invites her to karaoke. She apologizes and says maybe next time, her mind elsewhere. Later, as a suited student stands with his phone, Azusa reads a message chain inviting only her to meet on the woodland path in Takyo Park. Walking down the corridor with her bag, she rereads the message about Takyo Park's woodland path and notes it is not a popular place. Her eyes widen as she wonders if this secret meeting could mean something more. Clenching her fist nervously, she imagines it might be a confession, her heart racing. She pictures herself beside Sakuraba under the trees and shyly dreams of becoming Suchan's lover, while another couple's silhouette passes. Her fantasy continues to an almost kiss with Sakuraba, until her flustered imagined self throws up her arms in embarrassment. Smiling softly with pink cheeks, she admits inwardly it really could be a love confession. At the quiet bamboo-lined park, Azusa looks around, calling for Suchan and puzzled he is not there. A tall boy suddenly slips behind her, covers her mouth, greets her by name with a creepy smile, and says he is glad she came as her eyes fill with terror. Restrained and muffling her cries, he promises to touch her while she desperately tries to call for Suchan's help. He presses his hand tighter and whispers it is useless because Suchan already sold her out and told them to do whatever they want. Azusa clutches his shirt and tries to protest he is lying, but he insists he would not deceive her and reminds her Suchan summoned her here. Her head is yanked back. With her mouth barely free, she tries to scream for help while he keeps restraining her. Looming with dark, predatory eyes, he tells the trembling girl he is gentle with cute ones and urges her to relax, as narration says that once she came here, everything became inevitable. Pressing his face to her neck, he remarks on her smell and invites her to have fun, while a panel of the deserted park shows no one will save her. Later at home, Sakuraba sits hunched over his phone thinking only of Azusa and wondering if he should tell her everything. Staring at the curtain window, he decides telling her would only worry her more and sinks into indecision. A close-up of his eyes shows his hesitation harden into grim resolve. Rushing outside and calling across the street, he yells for Azusa, alarmed by something he has realized. Days later, when she finally appears with disheveled uniform and bandaged arm, Azusa looks drained and shakily asks what has happened to her. She glares from a distance and screams at him not to come near, demanding why he would have done such a thing. As he stammers that he does not understand and asks what happened, the panel shows her bruised legs while an inner voice accuses him of shamelessly calling her there. Panicking, Sakuraba insists it was not him, denying the accusation with wide-eyed fear. Azusa, face-shadowed, asks who else could have done it and raises her trembling hand, leaving him speechless. Tears streaming, Azusa blurts that she was violated, her raw confession shocking him into silence. Speechless and half reaching out, Sakuraba watches her turn away and walk off, leaving him at the entrance. Standing before her departing figure and the apartment gate, he tells himself this cannot be true and swears he must clear his name. Looking down at his phone and rereading the Takeo Park messages, he whispers in horror, wondering what they mean. Sitting numbly in his room, he reflects that in a moment everything in his life lost meaning, his face empty. In a black inner panel, he says he no longer cares how they found his weakness or treat him. All that matters is his vow to destroy them all. Over a sky with power lines, his final thought hangs as he concludes he must take revenge. Days later at school, a long-haired girl stands on the rooftop looking down at the grounds, the clock tower beside her like a marker for coming vengeance. She suddenly appears before him with a bright smile and playful sigh, saying she has finally found him. After classes, Sakuraba walks through the courtyard with faint bruises, passing laughing delinquents who ignore the murderous gaze fixed on them from behind. A close-up of his clenched chest and tie shows rising tension and suppressed rage. In a storm of motion lines, Sakuraba brandishes a knife and howls that he will end them all, a small panel showing the blade and another his hate-filled stare. Nearby, a medium-haired girl turns in mild surprise, noticing the strange commotion. The mysterious long-haired girl smiles with sharp interest and quietly asks if he wants revenge. When he gasps and demands who she is, she calmly scolds that answering a question with a question is impolite. Raising one hand and smiling, she says she will ask again whether he truly desires revenge. She then describes his plan as simply stabbing them all to death and asks if that straightforward slaughter is really the best choice. Standing before the school with knife drawn, Sakuraba glares at the bullies and coldly says they cannot stop him now. In close-up, his glasses glint as he mutters that even if others intervene, his resolve will not change. Facing the long-haired girl, he raises his arm defensively and warns that he is already prepared for anything. She spreads her arms with a bright smile and says stopping him is not actually her aim. Smiling knowingly, she says simply stabbing them would only hurt for a moment and end, making such revenge far too easy. Sakuraba, sweating and startled, repeats easy in disbelief, unable to accept that description of his bloody plan. Raising one finger, she adds that the result of that kind of revenge would not be very good for him either. Over the delinquents walking outside school, her voice explains that if he did that, they would become pitiful victims with everyone's sympathy while he lost his future, was branded the evil culprit, and got arrested with nothing gained. Beaming, she asks if trading all that for his boiling wrath is not unfair, teasing that he must agree. After a pause, Sakuraba looks down, then up at her and grudgingly says all right before demanding who she really is. She suddenly appears before him in the strange stairway space in her school uniform, posing with a V-sign while he stares, stunned by the surreal setting. In the void of crisscrossing staircases, he stands tiny and bewildered while her winged figure dives toward him, and to the side his face twists as he stammers in shock, asking what this place is. Landing and twirling in a fantasy outfit with horns and bat wings, she cheerfully introduces herself as Asmode and says he can think of her as a friend of justice. Sidling up and grabbing his tie, Asmode proposes a contract through which he will gain a power far greater than that knife, making him echo power in confusion. Her smile turns sly as she says the power she offers will match the wrath already burning inside him. In a split panel, he stiffly repeats power while below, Asmode hangs upside down in midair and assures him she will grant strength beyond anything he can imagine. Floating before him, she insists her offer is pure goodwill, while he frowns and demands what she herself gains. As he mutters there is no way he could believe such nonsense, a voice off-panel muses about how to answer him. She then laughs that she actually thinks he is a nice guy, but maybe being bullied has made him stupid, calling him pitiful and provoking him into shouting for her not to mock him. Turning away with a little flip of skirt and cape, she claims she is only joking and abruptly says all right, shifting the mood. Tugging at her hem, she calmly reveals that she is the demon of the seventh deadly sin. With a confident smile and a little curtsy, she finishes by naming herself the demon of desire. Sakuraba's eyes bulge as he stammers desire and demon, choking on what he is dealing with. Spreading her arms, Asmode reminds him his precious person was violated and urges him to make those guys taste a pain worse than death, an eye for an eye. With hands clasped dreamily, she insists that only desire-driven vengeance powered by a demon can free him from such despair. As Sakuraba sweats and thinks how illogical her existence is, his inner voice concedes that if she can really grant revenge, he does not care how irrational it seems. His gaze fixes on her half-smiling face as he concludes that even if she is a demon, that no longer matters. Clenching his teeth, he decides he is willing to sell his soul if needed and demands what kind of demon power she can grant. In the endless stairway world, Asmode faces him and says she first wants to hear his story. With a mischievous laugh, she promises to tell him about the power most suited to him. Holding up 2 ornate coins, she announces that this special power is called the marker, making him murmur the word in puzzlement. She explains that the power she grants lets him teleport instantly from one marker's location to the other. Resting her hands on his shoulders and leaning close, Asmode calls him by full name and invites him to teleport together. A bright panel flashes as she activates the coins, and Sakuraba feels his body yanked through space, shock frozen on his face while she watches from another stair. Now floating behind him with spread wings, she explains that this teleportability is what she intends to bestow. Beside a diagram of 2 markers and a 3-meter circle, she says he only has to say the marker's name and issue a command while within 3 meters to move to the paired marker. Over another diagram, her voice adds that if he wants to move objects instead, he just needs to know their names, though if he teleports while holding a marker, that marker will stay. As Sakuraba considers the diagrams, he calls the power impressive but notes that if markers are placed too close, the teleport radius shrinks under 1 meter, and Asmode raises a finger to say there is one more rule. He frowns and mutters that such a small, limited ability feels childish, wondering how he could take revenge with this. In response, Asmode flicks his forehead with a glowing fingertip and calls him a fool. Pointing at him, she explains that among her powers this is the most interesting, as it can unleash immense effects depending entirely on the user's feelings. From off-panel, her voice drifts in, asking if he does not even believe in himself. Smiling confidently and forming a gun gesture, she tells him that if he wields this power properly, he will soon taste the real pleasure of revenge. With both hands extended, she says that since those guys stole the pure heart of his beloved, getting even is simple, an eye for an eye through an equally cruel theft. She lifts her fist suggestively and clarifies that his revenge will be stealing their own precious ones. Facing him across the void, Asmode agrees it is like stealing, even kidnapping, but insists what must be taken is not a body. Surrounded by cartoon hearts, she says what must be stolen is their heart itself, in other words stealing their love, adding that if he engineers that, there is no need for literal abduction and that she loves arranging such situations. Turning her back slightly, she dismisses simple magic or hypnosis as worthless tools for controlling people. Sakuraba, still wary, asks what exactly she means. On a distant staircase, she says violence and forced obedience may rule people outwardly, but can never fully control a heart. He pictures Azusa weeping with her face buried in her arms as Asmode states that the most painful thing for humans is having a loved one's heart stolen away. Then she cheerfully explains that forced teleportation can become a tool which, used cleverly, will make others obey him. Looking down at the 2 markers in his palm, Sakuraba repeats that she wants him to control the bullies with this power, and privately wonders what deeper scheme she has. Clenching his fist with grim resolve, he thinks he cannot turn back and says he no longer cares about anything except moving forward. From behind, Asmode asks if this means he accepts the deal, gently pressing for confirmation. His vision snaps back to the real schoolyard as he stares through his glasses, realizing the entire conversation took place in a dreamlike other space. But when he looks at his open palm and sees the 2 real markers, he understands it was no mere daydream. A small, secretive smile touches his face as he watches 2 delinquents walk away, already thinking how to use the markers on them. As he strides toward the rooftop while they mutter in confusion, one of them calls after him with a puzzled "What, you there?" Later, he pedals his bicycle up a forested mountain path toward a secluded place from his childhood. Panting as he rides, he recalls the secret room he discovered when younger. A flashback shows his younger self and Azusa shining a flashlight into a rocky tunnel, wondering if the chamber ahead might be a bunker. The boy urges they go back and insists there is nothing to fear, while the girl clings to him nervously. The flashback shifts to the two children standing in the doorway of a decayed wooden room, its grim interior half in shadow. Another angle reveals the filthy bed, scattered junk, and a toilet, with young Azusa shrinking back in disgust as the boy watches uneasily. Back in the present, Sakuraba pushes through undergrowth, thinking the secret room deep in the mountain should be around here. He finally spots the dark entrance and approaches it, heart pounding. Soon he stands before the old wooden door inside, reaching out to test if it will still open. From the corridor interior, he tugs at another door and notes the place appears abandoned and untouched for years. Looking down from above the dingy cell-like room, he notes it is big enough for a prison and that he only needs to rearrange a few things. Suddenly a Smode pops into existence behind him, peering over his shoulder and brightly asking if this place might be useful. He spins around in terror, screaming and demanding why she is here as his voice breaks. With an indifferent expression, she says appearing here is another of her powers and that he should get used to it, while he protests internally that he never could. Gesturing toward the cracked ceiling and bricks, she remarks that using this room as a teleport destination looks promising. Surveying the refurbished space, she notes he prepared a holding cell quickly, says she might revise her opinion of him, while he tells her not to flatter him and asks what she is planning. Her eyes gleam as she clasps her hands and urges him to lock the door and use the marker, suggesting they capture and imprison everyone who has bullied him. When she asks who his first target will be, Sakuraba, eyes full of hatred, declares he has chosen Mizuno. The scene cuts to Mizuno Hina at home, lounging with a drink and phone, smiling smugly as she scrolls through messages under her own name. From above, her voice casually mentions Takeuchi-kun and relays that Tokushige wants to request the usual favor. In another room, a long-haired girl clutches her phone by the window and protests weakly that she does not want to do that, while the person on the line presses her to repeat herself. From Mizuno's lips, the lazy explanation comes that the guy wants to do it without protection this time. Holding her phone with a languid grin, Mizuno adds that the girl should take pills beforehand since it would be troublesome if she got pregnant. Back with Sakuraba, he trudges along while Smode cheerfully reminds him that since he picked Mizuno, he should at least prepare properly, and his narration notes that after saying that she again vanished without a trace. As evening falls and he rides past rows of houses, his inner voice declares that his revenge will begin tomorrow, even as he notes from his phone that Azusa still has not replied. Back home, he notices unfamiliar shoes at the entrance and wonders uneasily who the guest is. Peering through the barely opened door, his eye widens as he spies the unexpected visitor. In the living room, Smode sits on the sofa smiling and says she was just talking about him, while a relative folds laundry and he blurts a confused response. His mother happily introduces Smode as his cousin staying for a while he leans in and shouts in disbelief, demanding what she is doing here as Smode plays the innocent family member. Smiling sweetly, Smode announces that from today she will be living with them for a bit, feigning polite surprise. Facing him with a radiant grin, she says that is why she wants Suichi-kun to take good care of her, while he stands in the dark frame speechless. An exterior shot of the school building the next day sets the scene for the continuation of their pact. Smode casually tells him she has altered his parents' perception so they believe she is their niece, demonstrating another frightening ability. Walking down the hallway, Sakuraba thinks bitterly that she can change cognition, and that he probably should have requested that power instead. Entering his classroom as others chat and glance his way, he feels the weight of their eyes while taking his seat in the center. Nearby, Mizuno frowns at her phone and tells her friend she cannot reach Chiaki, wondering what is going on. A close-up shows Mizuno's unanswered messages and missed calls as she complains that today was supposed to be their photography day and asks why Chiaki called so much. Her social media profile appears, and narration explains that Mizuno is a popular influencer with around 150,000 followers. Sakuraba observes that her photography talk must relate to the agency job she mentioned, concluding this schedule is likely for sponsored food photos she is paid to promote. Mizuno bristles and insists she is not a fraud, saying she only needs to introduce the products while others eat and praise them. Back in class, one bully looms over Sakuraba's desk and remarks that he had guts to skip school after seeing them yesterday, prompting Sakuraba to murmur a sorry as he bides his time. From above, one delinquent scolds another about the last incident, snapping that he has been getting disobedient lately. Grinning and pointing at Sakuraba, Mizuno backs the thug up, warning that if they do not obey Hayami-san things will go very bad. Watching her, Sakuraba pauses and wonders if Mizuno might not even know about Azusa's assault, feeling a flicker of doubt. The group gathers around the entrance as one bully asks what is going on, the tense mood drawing everyone's eyes. With an oily smile, Hayami leans in and says he really wants to be with Azusa, stressing he wants it right in front of Sakuraba. Mizuno turns away with a pained expression, coldly ordering them to release that victim for now, anger and disgust twisting her face. Takeuchi Miku sweats nervously, clearly terrified by Mizuno's decision yet unable to protest. Hayami addresses Miku with a smirk, warning her not to mess up, while another boy mocks Sakuraba and orders him to stand guard. Miku clasps her hands and bows in forced obedience as Hayami looms over her, while Sakuraba looks away in silent loathing, thinking of her name, Takeuchi Miku. Narration says that although Miku is liked by everyone in class, once Mizuno's group noticed her she was bullied and used like a puppet, and now must obey anything. Outside by the building, someone clicks their tongue in irritation, the harsh tusk echoing off the rooftop walls. In a grim overhead shot, Hayami pins a girl near the stairs and taunts her, asking if she has gone numb to what they do. Later, the same girl lies on a futon in only a camisole, staring blankly as someone off-panel dismisses her as a boring woman. As Hayami leaves the filthy room with his friends, one tells Sakuraba they will leave the rest to him and says if he wants to use the room he can because they are done. Sakuraba gazes at Miku's half-naked, exhausted body on the mattress, his blank glasses hiding his turmoil as she lies motionless with her back to him. Standing a short distance away, he calmly asks if she wants revenge on the guys who turned her into this, offering it like a dark bargain. Miku glares up with a twisted, cynical smile, scoffing that all he can do is watch and asking what he could possibly accomplish. Sakuraba answers heatedly that he will act but says it will not be just him, hinting that something inhuman will also be involved. A close panel on the open doorway carries the ominous promise that the one to punish them will be a demon. The scene shifts to a cityscape of towering apartments, showing the mundane world beyond the school's cruelty. At home, Mizuno clenches her fists and shouts in outrage about Chiaki suddenly quitting on her, calling it unbelievable. A blonde boy replies that if it is only taking a photo with Hina he can go instead, volunteering matter-of-factly. Walking with him, Mizuno smiles and explains that girls like to be seen together, saying Chiaki might look thuggish but is a tall, cool girl perfect for her image, while he mutters he does not get it. He privately pictures Chiaki as a wild yet attractive girl and repeats Mizuno's description of her as a cool, slightly rough beauty. Narration explains Mizuno's calculation that since most followers are young girls, a photo with Chiaki will hit them very differently. When the boy asks why it has to be a girl and whether a handsome boy would not work, Mizuno firmly rejects it, saying a cute boyfriend would only attract jealous haters. She leans closer and lectures that girls' jealousy is terrifying, asking if he finally understands, while off-panel laughter agrees beneath a shot of the sky. Clinging to his arm, Mizuno asks if it is really okay for Masataka to skip his club just to help her. He admits he cannot honestly say it is fine but shrugs that his girlfriend is in trouble, and she beams, thanking him with a light laugh. Arm in arm, they walk between apartment blocks, Mizuno happily pointing toward their destination as Masataka looks slightly uneasy. Elsewhere at night, Sakuraba hides in a hood, mouth twisted with anticipation as the panel reveals the bright facade of the shopping mall where they will meet. Inside the shop, Masataka asks what photo they are taking today, and Mizuno cheerfully answers that it will be pancakes from a newly opened store. An exterior shot of Café Provence shows Mizuno explaining that the owner knows her agency boss, which is why she got this promo gig, while Masataka hums noncommittally. On their table, a beautifully plated pancake glistens with cream and syrup, prompting an admiring off-panel wow. Sitting opposite him, Mizuno apologizes but asks Masataka to stay right there for a moment, and he agrees, confused, asking why. Standing stiffly, he listens as she claims the light behind him is too strong and then abruptly says it is fine now, moving him like a prop. As she lines up her camera, Mizuno smirks that of course she minds details, boasting she would never have reached 150,000 followers without such care. Over coffee and cake, she explains that even dessert shots need technique, saying she framed the plate to fill 70% of the image with minimal tableware, leaving Masataka to ask in surprise if she is serious. He finally concedes that her explanation really is impressive, looking at her with new respect. Mizuno says such effort is normal because being an influencer is only a stepping stone. She declares her real goal is show business and says there is still so much to do. Outside the cafe, Sakuraba in his hood peers in through the glass, silently watching Mizuno and Masataka chatting. In close-up, his shaded face and clenched jaw appear beside a black panel stating that, for now she can only laugh, hinting her turn to suffer is coming. A speech balloon outlines Mizuno's work process as she decides the shot looks good for now, and says she will send it to her boss for checking. She taps her phone, casually saying she is done while Masataka groans about also needing to promote how clean the washroom is, calling it a hassle. A cutaway shows hands typing rapidly on a laptop beside a cup, someone remotely preparing posts or agency instructions. On a glowing screen, an email about casting Akatsuka and a subject line noting the boss will check the picture flash up, while a close shot of Mizuno's eyes shows her reacting. Back in the secret room, Asmode beams with sharp-toothed delight, declaring that everything is now going according to plan. In the mall corridor, Sakuraba waits in his hood near the restrooms while Mizuno heads to the women's bathroom, unaware of the trap. Peeking around the corner, he spots her entering and thinks that there she is, the perfect moment finally here. Inside, Mizuno stands at the sink staring into the mirror, worrying aloud about Chaiki's disappearance and wondering what happened. Applying lipstick with a smirk, she quickly undercuts her concern, thinking she still has a date with Masataka and pushing aside unease. A close shot of her bag and eyes shows her reassuring herself that this date will be good for her image too, clutching the accessory with idle straps. Admiring her reflection with a confident smile, Mizuno adjusts her hair, unaware that Sakuraba has appeared behind her in the mirror's edge, fists clenched. Her gaze drops as she catches the reflection of his glasses and her pupils contract in shock, breathing a startled ah. She whirls and demands why Sakuraba came into the girl's bathroom, but he stands in the doorway with grim purpose, ignoring her outrage. In a split panel, he steps forward and shouts for her to repent, calling her a filthy woman while she stares wide-eyed, stunned by the venom in his voice. As his fury peaks, a narrow panel shows his mental command targeting her as he invokes Mizuno Hina and orders teleportation. Silent panels show him checking the corridor, turning off the tap and walking across the now empty bathroom, making sure no trace of her remains. Back at the cafe, Masataka glances at Mizuno's empty seat and the untouched laptop, thinking goodbye to Hina with a faint sense that something is off. In darkness, Mizuno's panicked thoughts echo as she cries that she cannot see anything and demands to know who is there, another voice faintly recognizing her as Hina. Light returns to show her in the decrepit mountain cell, calling out to Chiaki and asking what this place is as she tries to grasp it. Chiaki raises a hand, telling her to calm down, saying she has no idea what this place is either, and shouting that she does not understand what is happening. Chiaki says that morning on her way to school she noticed Sakuraba staring, planned to rough him up for it, and then suddenly found herself in this room. A memory of Sakuraba's shadowy figure calling her a filthy woman flashes behind Mizuno, who clutches her hair and repeats his name in disbelief. She looks around in rising panic, demanding to know what is going on and what happened to the guy who did this. Chiaki, sitting cross-legged, says that besides them there is another captive, and as she gestures with her phone, Mizuno gasps. Miku sits huddled against the brick wall with knees drawn up, her expression distant and hollow. Mizuno approaches and stammers Miku's name, shocked to find the meek classmate imprisoned with them. Mizuno nervously suggests calling the police, but Chiaki says there is no signal, that she has tried everything and her own phone has already died. Chiaki adds that pounding on the door does nothing, saying she cannot hear any outside sounds and guessing the room might be underground. From above, the three girls sit scattered across the filthy floor. Mizuno asks if Miku knows anything while Chiaki mutters it is pointless, and that given their situation Miku's withdrawal is normal. Later, Chiaki and Mizuno sit side by side against the wall, both staring blankly as silence settles over the prison. Mizuno's eyes blaze with hatred as she curses their captor, vowing that once she escapes she will have Masataka and Takuma deal with him. Miku adds in a low, trembling voice that before calling the police, she intends to beat him herself. A close-up of Miku's exhausted eyes shows her saying that this guy's kidnapping and confinement alone are enough for serious legal trouble. Mizuno suddenly brightens with manic glee, reasoning that if she plays the poor victim her followers will soar, laughing loudly while Chiaki skeptically asks if she is not absurdly optimistic and calls her Pollyanna, trying to get her attention with a wary Hina and a puzzled what. In the dark hallway beyond the cell, a simple speech balloon asks if anyone has something to eat, footsteps scraping closer. Back in Sakuraba's room, Asmode lounges on his bed snacking on chips, humming while reading manga and waiting for his report. When Sakuraba returns, she greets him from the mattress, commenting that everything seems to have been arranged nicely while he hesitates in the doorway. Floating upside down in front of him, Asmode tilts her head and asks what he feels now that his first targets are captured. His thoughts form hesitant words as he admits that, if anything, he feels a small relief. Asmode's disembodied voice chuckles that no lion fears a hare and tells him those bullies are now his prey, while Sakuraba wonders why he ever had to obey them. With a peace sign and bright smile, she tells him not to worry, explaining she is simply starving the captives for 2 days to weaken them, and suggesting he start destroying his trapped prey. Dangling upside down again, she muses that after a few days everyone will notice 3 students missing at once, and that he must plan around that. Sakuraba listens tensely as she warns him to be careful not to draw suspicion when the disappearances are noticed. A close-up of Mizuno back in the cell shows her eyes flare as she suddenly remembers something and snaps by the way, ready to scheme again. In Sakuraba's room, Asmode jabs a finger at a manga page and demands his opinion, asking if the scene should be drawn more provocatively. He looks at her baffled and asks what exactly she means, caught off guard by how casually she critiques eroticism in the middle of their plot. Back at school, one boy asks where Masataka is, small panels showing his empty seat and then the exterior of the building under a gray sky. His friends grumble that this is no time for jokes, while another says he cannot reach Chiaki either in half jokes, that maybe those two went off together on a photography trip. Sitting at his desk apart from them, Sakuraba coolly suggests that since Hina mentioned online she might have a stalker, an overzealous fan might have approached her. Another classmate frowns and says that in the worst case Hina could be imprisoned somewhere, the idea finally making them uneasy. In homeroom, the teacher gravely tells the class that as they know, Mizuno, Sekido and Takeuchi have not come home since yesterday. As gossip erupts, Sakuraba sits silently while classmates whisper theories, from Mizuno being kidnapped while taking photos to her offending someone online. At home in his room, Sakuraba watches a news report saying the whereabouts of the 3 missing high school girls, Takeuchi Miku, Sekido Chiaki and Mizuno Hina, remain unknown. The broadcast zooms in on Mizuno's cheerful profile photo as the announcer says police are gathering information from relatives and asks where the 3 might be. The next day, a public security officer named Sakashida questions someone in an office, asking if anything has been strange about Mizuno Hina and noting the 3 victims are connected to Kanyaka's group. Narration over Sakuraba's composed face says he too was interrogated, but despite nervousness, managed to insist nothing was unusual, leaving no clear grounds for suspicion. A panel of Azusa smiling in casual clothes notes she has not attended school since the attack and has stopped answering Sakuraba's calls and messages. An exterior shot of her house shows tightly closed curtains, with narration saying they have stayed shut ever since, sealing her away from the world. 2 days later, flyers, online articles, and YouTube thumbnails about the missing girls fill the page, showing how their case has become a public spectacle. At the rusted mountain cell door with a flashlight, Sakuraba steels himself, thinking that after 3 days without food or water he wonders what state they are in and that there is no turning back. He enters the crumbling corridor where Chiaki sprawls and Mizuno curls up weakly, telling himself that from now on everything that happens is part of his revenge. A tight split view shows Chiaki and Miku collapsed on the stone floor, limp and vacant, driven to the edge by thirst and hunger. Mizuno lifts her head with dead eyes and croaks for water while Sakuraba stares, shocked by how far they have deteriorated. On the filthy floor lie Mizuno's phone, dead insects and a twitching bug, emphasizing how abandoned and unsanitary the cell is. Shielding her eyes from the flashlight, Mizuno slowly recognizes Sakuraba and reaches out, hope and desperation mixing on her face. She staggers to her knees, clutching her chest and begging for help, her voice trembling so badly words almost fail. In extreme close-up of his glasses, he hears her beg for forgiveness and to be let out, her voice breaking as she grovels. Kneeling, Mizuno clasps her hands and Sakuraba icily asks if she is really begging his forgiveness, saying that means she admits she did something wrong. Chiaki suddenly heaves up on one elbow and screams at him to know his place, fury flaring despite her weakness. With wild eyes and a raised middle finger, Chiaki rants that she only did dirty things to girls and a bit of bullying, accusing him of going too far. Sakuraba suddenly grabs her collar, shocking her into silence as her eyes go wide. Face to face, he yells, demanding how she can call it a little bullying while yanking her shirt, enraged by her denial. A flashback overlays his clenched fist striking a cowering girl as Miku's past voice begs him to stop, coloring his current anger. Back in the present, Chaiki braces for the blow while his fist trembles midair, sweat beading as he barely reins himself in. Turning away coldly, he declares it is over for them and that they will spend the rest of their lives there. Mizuno collapses, clutching her head and screaming apologies over and over until her voice dissolves into ragged sobs. Adjusting his glasses, Sakuraba coolly notes that with their dehydration they can probably endure only one more day like this. Half-shadowed and frantic, Mizuno cries that she does not want to die, terror crowding out her pride. Forcing a strained smile, she suddenly points to Miku and tells Sakuraba he can treat Miku however he wants if it will spare her. From Miku's perspective, Mizuno gestures at her and tells Sakuraba he can do anything he wants to that girl, leaving Chaiki stunned by the betrayal. Sakuraba glares, calling them scum and saying their way of treating others only grows more stupid in his eyes. On the floor, heavy leather collars with attached chains clatter ominously, hinting at the next stage of captivity. Mizuno stares in confusion, stammering that they look like collars. Sakuraba flatly orders them to put the collars on, while one girl mutters in disbelief that he must be joking. In a vertical split, his sharp gaze makes Mizuno and Chaiki freeze mid-motion with the collars, realizing he is completely serious. Still in her school uniform, Miku quietly asks if it is not over yet, then reaches for a collar as his hand places one within reach. In close-up, Miku now wears the collar and chain, hands clasped anxiously to her chest as she stammers a hesitant yes, accepting her role. Blushing, she removes her blouse to reveal delicate underwear, while in an inset Mizuno and Chaiki gape, unable to comprehend her actions. Kneeling in just her underwear before him, Miku looks up and asks if this is enough to satisfy his demand. After a heavy silence, Sakuraba finally says she has done well, his expression unreadable. Her eyes follow his hand as he pulls a water bottle from his bag and sets it down, the liquid becoming the room's focus. Parched lips barely forming words, Miku whispers about water while he twists the cap open with deliberate slowness. She tilts back her head and gulps greedily, water running down her throat in big, desperate swallows. Nearby, Mizuno glances sidelong at Chaiki, the two trading tense looks as they watch Miku drink. Chaiki yanks open her shirt to strip as well, determined not to lose this degrading contest for survival. Now collared and in their underwear, Mizuno and Chaiki stand side by side, arms folded over themselves as they demand water too. Moments later, they each clutch a bottle, Mizuno beaming and Chaiki chugging eagerly, while Sakuraba watches with a jolt of realization. In close-up, he wonders if this really is only the beginning, just as Asmode predicted, his face tense with conflicted thoughts. A plastic bag lands with a dull thud, revealing a small portion of food as Sakuraba flatly announces this is their meal. From above, the three sit in a circle. Chaiki complains that after all they have done, he brings only one rice ball, pointing at it. Sakuraba says that if they want more, each can trade her social media account for one extra onigiri, treating their online lives as currency. Mizuno snaps that she will never agree, shouting that she makes 300,000 yen a month from photos, and will not give that up for one rice ball. He counters that in their current situation those accounts are worthless, saying that right now they have nothing. Addressing all three, he muses that their follower counts must have dropped during the days they could not post. Mizuno's face contorts as she stammers that he must be joking about her precious metrics falling. He then admits he lied and reveals their names are now a hot topic online, his offhand comment making her flinch. Grasping for another angle, Mizuno smiles nervously and offers to transfer him 1,000,000 yen immediately if he lets her out. Sakuraba curtly refuses, making clear that money means nothing to his vendetta. She breaks down, screaming into her phone for him to let her go and unlock the door, thumbs jabbing uselessly at the screen. Chaiki crouches and tries to soothe the sobbing Mizuno, telling her to calm down, worry creeping into her own face. Watching them, Sakuraba thinks it is unbelievable she still obsesses over followers and likes in this state, calling her a hopeless social media addict. Floating speech bubbles recall his warning that he would never let them leave, and that searching for an escape is pointless. Facing them, he says that instead of plotting to run, they should use their energy figuring out how to stay alive. From the doorway, he looks down at the kneeling girls before closing and locking the heavy door behind him. As soon as he vanishes, Mizuno and Chaiki stare at the empty entrance in shock, exclaiming that he is suddenly gone. A solitary thought bubble hangs in the vertical gutter, wondering in confusion what just happened. An exterior view of the quiet suburban house shows the ordinary facade hiding Sakuraba's demonic pact and secret dungeon. In his room, Asmode toys with a cockroach on her hair while Sakuraba stands in the doorway, thinking that just seeing the captives fills him with grim satisfaction. Overlaid narration describes Mizuno and Chiaki's faces twisting in humiliation as they beg for mercy, while his inner voice admits this is still far from enough. Another panel focuses on his solemn expression as narration says their suffering still does not approach what Azusa endured. Text boxes remind him of Asmode's advice that he must first break his targets completely before true revenge can begin. Turning toward the demon on his bed, he says the visit seemed to go well but awkwardly asks what to do with the confiscated uniforms. Asmode springs up and rattles off strange suggestions like inspecting or trying them on, then grins and asks what kind of weirdo he thinks she is. Flustered, Sakuraba protests that just possessing girls' uniforms is already strange, while Asmode teases that teens usually do exactly those things. Composing himself, he reminds her he must avoid arousing suspicion at school, and she again warns him not to let anyone sense something is off. A thin speech bubble in a blank strip quietly says she knew he would say that, hinting at Asmode's amused foresight. Back in the cell, a top-down view shows Mizuno and Chiaki sitting apart, discussing how he vanished in an instant and muttering about the mystery behind it. Another bubble grumbles that such a tiny amount of food only makes one hungrier and curses what a stingy cheapskate he is. A memory shows Miku and Sakuraba back-to-back in school uniforms as his voice explains to her that the being involved is a demon, grounding their current confusion. In the cell again, Miku kneels in her underwear, wondering why she ended up like this and whether she can really get her own revenge. Mizuno points at her, insisting Miku tricked Sakuraba by flattering him obediently and must take responsibility for all this. Panicked, Miku cries that it was not like that and insists she was forced. Chiaki grabs Miku's hair, calling her an eyesore and telling her not to talk so much while Miku cries that it hurts. She yanks harder, pulling Miku up by the chain as the smaller girl begs to be let go, eyes wide with terror. Noticing leftover water in a bottle, Chiaki casually raises it to drink, ignoring Miku's desperate protest that she must not. Miku covers herself and apologizes profusely, asking Chiaki to leave her a little water while Chiaki half-heartedly says she is sorry. Later, lying on the floor and staring at the ceiling, Miku thinks this must be her punishment and that Sakuraba still resents her, while Mizuno suggests they work together to escape. A stark black panel with a central white rectangle shows Miku calling Sakuraba's name in her mind. Under the harsh flashlight, Mizuno and Chiaki shield their eyes, cursing the brightness and demanding to know what is suddenly shining at them. Now in a formal suit, Sakuraba grins as he aims the light and phone, laughing that he can finally see their pitiful state clearly. A low, taunting shot over Miku's collapsed body shows him saying he will upload humiliating footage of them to the internet and ordering them to pose for the camera. Chiaki snarls at him not to look and tells him to go to hell, while he remarks that many people online would watch such degrading images. Mizuno watches with a disgusted grimace and mutters that the spectacle is revolting. Sakuraba's expression darkens as he tells her to shut up, refusing to hear her judgments. Floating speech bubbles state that pets are not allowed to talk and that he cannot stand their voices any longer. Miku lies curled on the stones, eyes half closed and breathing shallowly, the chain from her collar stretched taut. Sakuraba studies her and thinks Takeuchi clearly shows dehydration symptoms, and that Sakido must have stolen her water. Additional narration says he was right to check the cell before school, since his whole plan would be ruined if Takeuchi died now. Holding another plastic bag, he announces it is mealtime as he steps into the cell again. Brandishing a water bottle with a twisted smile, he tells Sakido she must give Takeuchi water herself, using her mouth, leaving Chiaki aghast. Chiaki explodes, shouting for him to stop joking and insisting there is no way she would do something so disgusting. In a narrow panel, she flinches as he asks whose fault it is that Takeuchi collapsed like that. He accuses Chiaki of stealing Miku's water and says that is why she must now mouth-feed her, pinning moral responsibility on her. Mizuno suddenly yells that his accusation is correct, seizing the chance to dump all blame on Chiaki. Side by side, Mizuno rails that Chiaki caused this, while Chiaki snaps that he has no right to lecture them after kidnapping them. Sakuraba bares his teeth in a manic grin and declares that in that case they will get no water at all today. The two girls in their underwear drop to their knees in alarm, shouting that he is trying to kill them. Putting on a falsely thoughtful face, Sakuraba says that since it seems to be his own fault, he will personally mouthfeed Takuchi water instead, implying a new humiliation. Sakuraba leers and tells them not to worry, saying that while dehydrated Miku lies there, he will mouthfeed her water too. Hugging herself in underwear and collar, Mizuno stiffly stammers that she understands, fear and disgust twisting her face. Forcing a bright smile, Mizuno suddenly asks if Chiaki can mouthfeed Miku instead, leaving Chiaki shrieking in shock and betrayal. The two girls thrust their hands toward Sakuraba, Mizuno insisting Chiaki drank the water while Chiaki orders Mizuno to do it herself, as he watches them bicker by the door. Standing between their kneeling forms, he calmly argues that girl to girl should not be a problem, while Chiaki and Mizuno stare uneasily at his back. Mizuno snaps, demanding if he does this with guys himself and calling him a disgusting pervert who thinks anything is fine as long as it is girls. After a tense silence, Sakuraba tells them to decide quickly because he will be late for school, warning that refusal means no food or water for anyone. Chiaki yells for him to stop joking, furiously insisting he is the one who put them in this nightmare. Face twisting with pent-up rage, Sakuraba shouts back, asking if they ever cared how he felt when they used him like a toy. Numbered bubbles spell out his cruel bargain as Mizuno thinks that even after what they did, this demand feels far too much. Blushing and near tears, Mizuno finally cries that she will do it and demands if he is satisfied now. Satisfied, Sakuraba hands her 2 bottles and remarks that this will do as she grips the water with a sullen scowl. Mizuno tips back the bottle and drinks deeply, steeling herself for what she is about to be forced to do. Miku lies limp on the stone floor with collar and chain tight at her throat, looking up with a dazed, vulnerable gaze. Mizuno gathers her resolve, cheeks burning but eyes hard, muttering that if it is only this much it is nothing. A black panel shows Sakuraba's cold reminder to just think of it as no more than being bitten by a dog. Watching, Sakuraba suddenly wonders in surprise if Mizuno might actually go through with it. Mizuno gently cradles Miku's face in both hands and leans close, flushed and sweating as she prepares to transfer water mouth to mouth. As their faces near, Mizuno's eyes widen with a startled gasp, struck by what she is doing. She jerks back while Miku coughs violently on the ground, gasping as Mizuno clutches her own chest. Red-faced and gagging, Mizuno yells that she has had enough, shaking her fists in humiliated fury. Sakuraba takes her outburst with a light smile and simply says that is enough. Holding up 2 bottles, he explains that each gets 1 onigiri and that the remaining water is specifically for Takuchi and Mizuno. Mizuno whirls around, protesting that he is giving water to Miku even though Mizuno already shared some with her. He answers coolly that he is only returning what Mizuno stole from Miku and notes she still has half a bottle left, while she shouts at him to stop joking. With a bright, menacing smile, Sakuraba warns that if she ever robs someone again he will make them do more mouth feeding, adding that he is always watching. He twists the knife by remarking that next time her kiss will no longer be her first, smirking at the thought. The comment hits Mizuno like a blow, her pupils shrinking and sweat beading as she realizes her first kiss was taken this way. Collapsing to her knees, she glares at his retreating back and hoarsely demands how he could be so cruel to her. Miku, still weakened, apologizes nervously to Mizuno, who stays hunched over in misery, unable to answer. Later, walking through town, Sakuraba reflects that despite her flashy appearance, Sekido actually loses her cool very easily. Smirking to himself, he thinks he never expected she had never kissed anyone and muses that humiliating her is surprisingly entertaining. Back in the cell, Mizuno pants, staring at the scattered bottle near the door as harsh breaths echo in the cramped room. Miku lies on her side with chain slack, body slick with sweat, and breathing shallowly after everything that happened. Chiaki watches them and warns darkly that if this continues Miku will collapse completely, urging Mizuno to stop pushing it. Fist pressed to her lips, Mizuno trembles with rage, vowing she will never forgive that bastard and will someday make him regret all of this. From the floor, Miku weakly reaches out and begs Chiharu to calm down, repeating that she must not let hatred consume her. Curled up and staring into the darkness, Miku thinks Sakuraba-kun must truly hate her deeply to be doing this. The scene cuts to the school building 3 weeks earlier, before the abduction and Sakuraba's revenge. In a quiet hallway, 2 trendy girls tell a nervous Miku her task is easy, saying she just has to flirt with guys and make 100 of them follow Mizuno's account in a week. Cornered and fidgeting with her uniform, Miku apologizes but hesitates, while Mizuno scolds that she is being generous with such a small quota and accuses Miku of trying to bargain. Leaning in with a predatory smile, Mizuno urges her to have each boy introduce 10 friends, insisting that with 10 guys it will end quickly, but Miku protests that she hates it. Later, beside the stairs, Chiaki orders Miku coldly to just get it done however she can, leaving Miku shrinking back and asking what they expect her to do. Sakuraba suddenly steps forward, calling to Takeuchi and pointing out that she is clearly being harassed. In narration, Miku notes that Sakuraba-kun is actually in her class, even though she has never spoken to him before. Mizuno, now smiling sweetly, calls Sakuraba over like an old friend, urging him to come. Facing him with a practiced grin, Mizuno claims they are rehearsing for a surprise photo shoot and insists it is a misunderstanding, while Sakuraba says he is not fooled and that Takeuchi clearly dislikes it. Chiaki gets in his face, saying he is too nosy and demanding he leave them alone, using the surprise as an excuse. Mizuno then switches to a soothing tone, saying it was just a misunderstanding and that they are partly at fault too. Turning to Miku, she reminds her they are close friends and slyly prompts her to agree, pressuring the frightened girl to back up their story. As the bell rings, Mizuno casually tells Sakuraba goodbye and urges Miku to come, leaving him by the classroom door. Down the corridor, he watches the three girls walk away together, unsettled by how easily they brushed him off. Miku glances back, conflicted, while Sakuraba calls after her in disbelief, asking how she can accept such treatment. Away from prying eyes, Mizuno and Chiaki berate Miku for attracting attention, twisting her arm as she cries that it hurts, and they curse Sakuraba for interfering. Sitting with them on the stairway, another girl lazily suggests asking Hina's gangster boyfriend to beat Sakuraba up, though Chiaki dismisses it as useless. Mizuno, fiddling with her phone, decides a justice-obsessed guy will not be fixed by a beating, and complains that dealing with him is a hassle. She then smiles brightly and tells Miku she will cancel the previous follower task, but hints she has a different favor. Miku, clutching her chest uneasily, begs her to just say it and admits she really does not like any of this. Mizuno's expression hardens as she proposes upping the requirement to 200 guys, as if it is trivial. Tears welling, Miku drops her gaze and, feeling trapped, murmurs that she will do it. The scene shifts to a near-empty classroom where Miku sits alone before class, staring down as the clock ticks above. Sakuraba approaches her desk and awkwardly mentions yesterday, but she cuts him off with a polite thanks and insists she is fine. He nervously offers her a folded note, saying that if she does not mind he has something for her, leaving her surprised. Opening the paper, he reads neat writing thanking him and asking him to come to the chemistry room where she will be waiting, and he watches her leave with his heart pounding. Blushing and gripping his bag, Sakuraba calls after her to wait, flustered by the sudden invitation. Moments later, he slides the chemistry room door open, calling Takeuchi's name as he steps inside with timid curiosity. He catches a glimpse of Miku's hands nervously unbuttoning her blouse while she kneels on the floor, skirt and legs already posed. Seeing her like that, Sakuraba stammers her name in shock, raising a trembling hand. Miku, in lingerie and blushing deeply, leans toward him with hands on his tie as she asks him haltingly to hold on. She edges closer, fingers brushing his collar while he sweats and wonders in confusion what is happening. Suddenly the door slams and a teacher's voice apologizes sharply, catching them frozen in a compromising pose. From outside, students rush over and, seeing Sakuraba on top of Miku, shout in panic, demanding to know what he is doing. In the chaos, teachers and students drag Sakuraba away while Miku, now covered, watches in horror as someone shouts that he attacked her. His protests are drowned out as adults grip his arms and yell at him not to deny it, while someone crouches by Miku and asks if she is okay as a phone camera hovers. Mizuno appears behind Miku with a triumphant smile, commenting that this incident turned out quite unexpected. An overhead view shows the crowded room as one bully confirms they recorded everything, calling it clear evidence of a failed assault attempt. Pinned and sweating, Sakuraba begs them to stop joking and insists they are wrong, terror on his face. Mizuno glares down and proclaims they now have evidence against him, while his broken response trails off in disbelief. A male teacher looms over Sakuraba, asking if he understands why chemistry teacher now suddenly resigned and hinting that he could share that fate. Mizuno explains that because Miku is so kind she forgave Inao and agreed not to go to the police as long as he quit. As Miku clutches her uniform in the present, she narrates bitterly that although Inao tried to help when he saw she was bullied, she was the one who lured him into the girl's trap, which feels horribly unfair. Back in the confrontation, Sakuraba desperately tells the adults they are misunderstanding, insisting he is not stupid enough to miss what really happened. Mizuno strokes Miku's head and with a chilling smile warns that if he interferes in their affairs again, there will be consequences. She cheerfully adds that they will simply upload the attempted assault video online and ruin him. The flashback ends with Sakuraba being beaten and kicked by delinquent boys, as they declare he will be their toy while he groans in pain. Against a black background, Miku's inner voice apologizes to Sakuraba-kun for what she let happen to him. The story returns to the dungeon, showing the cell from above as Sakuraba stands before the three chained girls under harsh fluorescent light. Holding up a plastic bag, he brusquely announces today's meal while Mizuno glares murderously behind him. As he moves, Mizuno suddenly grabs his jacket, yanking him back to the wall and shocking him into a panicked gasp. Cornered with the bag still in hand, he yells for her to stop while she kneels, sobbing that she cannot take it anymore and begging to be released. With tears streaming down her furious face, Mizuno screams that she wants to go home and pleads with him desperately. When he does not relent, she lashes out, kicking at him and shouting for him to get off her as the bag swings wildly. Sakuraba steadies himself and, calling her bothersome, coldly reminds her he already explained the situation. Close up, he repeats in a hard voice that he will never allow any of them to leave. The panel shifts to the exterior of their worn-down school building, tying the present horror to the ordinary world outside. Standing alone on the grounds with a lunch basket, Sakuraba thinks Sekido is almost mentally broken now and tells himself he just needs to push her a little further. A faint smile crosses his face as he recalls how arrogant she used to be before imprisonment. Suddenly, another memory surfaces of Sekido confronting him on the school path, masked and towering as she demands what he wants. In that past moment, he looks up at her and declares with determination that he intends to take his revenge. Facing her on the street, he reminds her she once won a city karate tournament in junior high while she scoffs, asking if he really thinks he can do anything to her just because she is a girl. With a cruel grin, the bespectacled boy taunts Sekido that without the bullying scandal and her parents' divorce over raising her, she might have reached nationals, so it is no wonder she ended up like this. Sekido explodes, clutching her own collar and shouting back, demanding where he even learned such private things. Clenching her fists and charging, she roars that this is nowhere near enough to expose her weakness and tells him to go to hell, calling him an idiot as she prepares to strike. As she rushes in, he calmly faces her and sharply orders his power to teleport Sekido Chiaki away. In the next instant, her school bag tumbles down an embankment while he appears alone on a quiet roadside above, the emptiness showing she has vanished. The shot shifts to the worn school building, then to a classroom where Hina chats with a delinquent boy while Sakuraba stands stiffly in the corridor, watching through the doorway. During homeroom, he stands by the podium, listening as the teacher runs the usual standing, greeting, and sitting before announcing the morning session. As the teacher speaks, several classmates glance uneasily at Sakuraba's back, sensing tension while he remains expressionless. Sitting at his desk, Sakuraba stares ahead as the homeroom teacher says there is another matter, catching everyone's attention. With the clock behind him, the teacher announces that the police now want to investigate the case involving Mizuno's group. From the front of the grimy classroom, he concludes that the students named earlier must go to the student council room at lunch, then dismisses the class. As the teacher turns to leave, Yuki suddenly stands, calling out nervously and begging the teacher to wait. When the teacher slips out, voices rise in the classroom, one shouting this must be a joke, and another asking if the police are really looking for Mizuno and the others. Out in the hall, the teacher grips Yuki's shoulders and tries to calm him, saying he understands and insisting he trusts that the police are still searching for the missing girls. Jaw-clenched, Yuki slides the classroom door open again, his anger barely contained as he returns inside. A girl timidly asks Yuki-kun to calm down, but under her polite words, Sakuraba's mouth curves in a faint, ominous smile as he watches. In close-up, Sakuraba smirks to himself, thinking that what is happening to Yuki is only the karma he deserves. In Yuki's mind, memories surface of himself in a white shirt, loosening his tie and being praised by his friends, which swells his ego. Sakuraba, smaller and trembling in his blazer, remembers swaying on unsteady legs, fists uselessly clenched as the others closed in. That memory sharpens into Yuki's fist crashing into Sakuraba's face, sending him reeling as the bully's expression twists with vicious joy. Off to the side, Hina cups her hands and cheers loudly for Masataka, urging him to keep going and beat Sakuraba up even more. Flushed with triumph, Yuki hears her praise and shouts back that she should leave everything to him, basking in her attention as he postures over Sakuraba. He then grabs Sakuraba by the collar and rants that everything is Sakuraba's fault, while another boy warns that hitting the face leaves bruises, and someone off-panel orders Sakuraba to stand. In that brutal memory, Sakuraba glares up through his glasses and snaps back, demanding what they are staring at as his anger finally boils over. He suddenly lunges and bites viciously into Yuki's shoulder, teeth sinking through fabric as the bigger boy screams in shock. Yuki later lies on the floor with a swollen face, while someone comments Masataka clearly does not know how to hold back, and another worries if Sakuraba is even breathing, thinking the beating may have gone too far. Sakido and Hina appear side by side, Sakido in a mask, as Hina sneers that normally Sakuraba should be crying and begging by now, but he still resists, and she blames this stubbornness entirely on Sakuraba-kun. Hearing that, Sakido turns to Hina and calls her name, prompting her to listen as they consider what to do next. Yuki, smiling with a pair of scissors in hand, casually suggests they could try something like this instead. Sakido, alarmed, shouts for him to wait and demands to know if he actually wants to torture Sakuraba, but Yuki just grins and says not to worry because he only plans to make the boy's fingers a little longer. The scissors close around Sakuraba's outstretched finger with a small snip as he gasps in pain, shock shooting through his hand. A scream then echoes across the rooftop as Sakuraba collapses, clutching his hand and howling against the chain-link fence, his cries carrying over the school grounds. Down below, Yuki is yanked back by his accomplices as they stare at Sakuraba writhing. One shouts in disbelief, calling Yuki an idiot and demanding what he thinks he is doing. Another boy urges them to stop panicking and asks how they are supposed to handle this now, while Yuki forces a smile and greets Hina uncertainly, pretending nothing is wrong. Hina stares at her phone with wide, horrified eyes, sweat beating as whatever she sees makes her blood run cold. When Yuki responds with a confused one delinquent turns away, says he is leaving too, and walks off down the alley with two girls, abandoning Yuki. Hina hastily forces a smile and tells Sakido she has plans with Chiaki today, so they have to go, clearly using this excuse to escape the mess. One of the boys coolly tells Yuki he went too far and says he cannot keep up with him anymore, distancing himself from the violence. A speech bubble hangs alone, saying they should take Sakuraba to the infirmary and then casually signing off with a "see ya," showing how little they care. Back on the rooftop, Sakuraba crouches on the concrete as Yuki's legs loom over him, and Yuki snarls that this disaster is all because Sakuraba faked his pain and screamed so loudly. The scene cuts to an overturned chair in an empty classroom, while Yuki's voice rants that Sakuraba must want everyone to think he is some fool who cannot control himself, promising he will pay. In close-up, Yuki glares down at him, sweating and shouting that everything is Sakuraba's fault, his rage spiraling out of control. From above, Yuki stands over the crumpled boy on dried leaves, cursing him as a bastard and damning him while kicking his body. Against a black background, Sakuraba narrates that counting only beatings, Yuki has hit him more than even Kanyaka, likening Yuki to Mizuno's pet dog who will do anything to make her smile. The memory blends into the present as Sakuraba smiles coldly to himself, thinking that losing someone precious must be unbearable for Yuki and savoring how delightful that suffering feels. Another black panel follows where Sakuraba admits inwardly that despite everything, he feels absolutely awesome watching Yuki like this. Elsewhere, in a cluttered police office, detectives sit among computers as one remarks that a backpack belonging to a missing girl named Sakido seems to have been found. His colleague wonders what his partner thinks and muses that if the kidnapper took all three girls just to torture or abuse them, abducting that many at once is incredibly risky. The first detective rubs his head and says what bothers him most is the report they received from the girls' school during the investigation. Looking over Mizuno Hina's missing persons form, he notes that when they questioned students, most either kept quiet or gave suspiciously identical stories, making him wonder what is being hidden. Another thought balloon asks whether the students actually coordinated this consistency and if it might relate to why Hina was kidnapped. Several documents lie spread out, including reports on Mizuno and Sakido and photos of the riverside where Sakido's bag was found, while the detective concludes that his instincts point the culprit's motive in a specific direction. He flips to a report bearing Sakuraba's photo and states that the motive must be some sort of grudge tied to this boy. The narrative jumps to the student council room, sign as an investigator thanks the gathered students and says that is all they needed to ask, ending the questioning. Inside, one adult tells a boy he has something stuck to his back, prompting the bewildered student to turn and answer with a confused A. Reaching behind, the boy fingers the taped scrap of paper and shrugs that it must have come from something he leaned against, unaware of its meaning. Later, Sakuraba politely enters the guidance counselor's office, opening the door and announcing himself with rigid formality. Sitting across from the staff, he thinks that somehow the adults now know he was bullied by Mizuno's group and wonders uneasily who told them. He reassures himself that after teleporting Sekito and Takuchi away, he still attended school normally, which should be a solid alibi as he calmly faces the two faculty members. Standing alone in a stairwell, Sakuraba reflects that no one knows about his teleporting ability, believing his secret completely hidden. His thoughts drift to Tokushige as the scene splits between Sakuraba's wary face and Tokushige's stern expression, hinting at friction between them. Meeting in a quiet hallway, Sakuraba asks what the police questioned Tokushige about and whether they mentioned the bullying, while Tokushige leans on the wall and replies indifferently with a "so what?" In narration, Sakuraba insists to himself he truly did not mention any of that to the police, yet wonders what Tokushige is trying to confirm. Tokushige then presses further, asking if that is really all and demanding to know what Sakuraba told them about Miku-chan. Startled, Sakuraba echoes Takuchi-san's name and asks what Tokushige means, clearly not understanding why she is brought up. Tokushige explains that there is already an online chat room discussing the culprit and notes that one post claims the kidnapper must be someone from their school. The next panel zooms on the message board, showing anonymous comments from a supposed classmate who saw Takuchi with Tokushige and Sakuraba before she disappeared, speculating that the two boys might be responsible. Reading the screen together, Sakuraba and Tokushige react in shock as Sakuraba points out that although the site is anonymous, the poster used their real names, so it must be someone close. Looking sly, Tokushige insists he is not involved but muses that the police might already know about a supposed incident with Miku in the gym storage room, so he must match his story with Sakuraba's. Cornering him, Tokushige reminds Sakuraba he stood guard outside that day and says this makes him their accomplice, then threatens he could just claim Sakuraba was the one who had been with Miku. Enraged and panicking, Sakuraba shouts back for him to stop joking, unable to hide his fear of being framed again. An exterior shot of the school accompanies Tokushige's voice as he admits their being with Miku before she vanished is undeniable, and says that although the police's suspicion is troublesome, Sakuraba must see the situation is serious. Back inside, Tokushige jabs a finger at him and orders Sakuraba to listen, asserting that Sakuraba likes Miku-chan and using that feeling to pull him into the scheme while Sakuraba stammers a confused "heh." Tokushige proposes a story in which Sakuraba asked him, as Miku's close friend, to bring her to the gym so he could confess, implying they can use that as a shared alibi. Sakuraba protests that even if they say that it still sounds suspicious, his inner monologue noting that Tokushige seems either frightened or trying to frame him. Tokushige argues that saying Miku had not answered Sakuraba's confession yet leaves him with no clear motive, and from above the two boys stand in the courtyard as Sakuraba wonders if Tokushige is simply scared. Finally sighing, Sakuraba scratches his head and agrees to match their statements for now, resigning himself to this uneasy alliance. Tokushige then narrows his eyes and, claiming he only wants to know, bluntly asks whether Sakuraba truly has nothing to do with the kidnapping. Putting on an innocent face, Sakuraba replies that there is no way he could have done that, insisting he has attended school without missing a single class and using that as proof. A close shot of Sakuraba's eyes shows it widening as another voice calmly responds that he is right, quietly acknowledging the strength of that alibi. As Tokushige walks away down the corridor, he thinks he should avoid anything that draws attention and suspects the real culprit must be the boy who assaulted Azusa, briefly debating whether to report that attacker to the police. Back at the police station, an officer named Toda is called over as his colleague points out the strange marks on Sakuraba's back noted earlier and tells him not to worry. Studying the photograph, Toda strokes his chin and wonders if the pattern might actually represent some kind of number rather than random bruises. The scene returns to Sakuraba's dim room in the other world where the elf woman leans over his shoulder, saying he has been gone from their bed for a while and asking what he is doing. From behind, she rests her hands on his shoulders as he sits at his computer and explains he is just curious and wants to see the latest rumors, likening it to updating his knowledge. Facing him with a bright smile, she praises this as a good choice and warns that anyone who regrets having such power will eventually be destroyed by that regret. When new information appears on the screen, Sakuraba stiffens and mutters in confusion about what is happening, prompting the elf girl to ask anxiously what is going on. On the monitor, a social media post from @Ukumisansen9 declares that the culprit must be a certain man who befriends girls only to turn them into his targets again, trying to make them his women once more. Reading the post, the elf girl echoes him and notes there is already someone acting this way again, then offers to investigate further if Sakuraba is curious, asking his permission. The story cuts to a shabby apartment building, hinting that the focus is about to shift to someone living inside this rundown complex. In a cluttered bedroom there, Takuma lies shirtless on a futon with his girlfriend, admitting he cannot stop thinking about Hina and the others and wondering if their disappearance might be Mitsuru's doing, while she asks why he suspects Mitsuru. Elsewhere, Sekido, still masked, explains haltingly that Chaiki never liked Mitsuru and was bothered by his constant flirting and attempts to pursue her. An exterior balcony view accompanies their speculation as someone suggests that maybe Mitsuru finally snapped and did something, then asks what that would mean for Hina, while another voice muses that other possibilities may exist. Back on the bed, Takuma embraces his girlfriend, stroking her head as she says she will trust his judgment but asks if he will protect her if anything happens, and he promises he will, vowing not to give her to anyone.